Hey love, in 2020 I was dying and I wrote this book, How I Saved My Own Life. You can get it in the tappy place in my bio or on Amazon. Follow, I'm reading it to you. Discern the mechanism. Ownership allows clarity. Identify the pattern, name the behaviors, trace the belief, see the structure beneath the emotion. Same map, but your story. When you finally got still enough to look at the actual patterns, not the pain, not the story, not who did what, but the repeating mechanism underneath all of it. Here's the first pattern. The first pattern I had to break was the ugliest one. Not because it was mine, because it wasn't. It had been installed. I was raised inside a system that worshipped males, built on the glory on their invisible, animal, relentless labor of women. Southern Christianity at its most efficient, a throne for every man and a role for every woman. Don't tell them the throne is just a toilet. Feed me, fuck me, leave me alone. That was the theology I was handed, dressed in scripture and forced from pulpits, confirmed by culture. We've heard our president say he likes them dumb. We've heard thousands of pastors say, get them young before they know anything. See how girls are hunted? The pattern installed in me, and most women raised inside that system, was simple and total. A woman must never outshine her husband. So I choked my light down, and down, and down, because the light kept getting dimmer inside of him, and the gap kept growing, and the only solution the program offered was, make yourself smaller. It took 5 years. The entire Eden Protocol development period, all 5 years, to deconstruct and final wiggle free of the tightest mental and emotional straitjacket ever designed for women. But I wiggled out. And here's what the unwinding actually looked like. I quit. Not dramatically, not in one explosive moment. I just stopped. Stopped cooking. Stopped doing laundry. Stopped making doctor's appointments and sending reminders and managing the invisible architecture of a household built entirely around one person's comfort. I sat in my office for hours, alone, ripping patterns out of my own mind by the root. And here's what nobody tells you about that process. It's not just emotional. It's not just psychological. It is physical agony. Because the servitude wasn't just a habit. It was neurological. Here's the science. When a behavior is repeated consistently enough, especially one reinforced by fear, by social consequence, and by the threat of abandonment or punishment, it becomes literally wired into the nervous system. The neural pathways deepen with every repetition. Myelin sheaths build around those pathways, making them faster, more automatic, more default. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a chosen behavior and an installed one. It just knows this is what we do. Dr. Bessel van de Kolk documented extensively how trauma and chronic stress physically reshape the nervous system, rewiring threat responses, altering the vagus nerve, and changing the very architecture of how the brain processes safety and danger. I wasn't just emotionally codependent. I was neurologically programmed to serve. Not serving felt like dying. Slave mentality. The physical pull of codependency, the literal cellular demand to go make someone a sandwich, to smooth something over, to insert myself in a solution where someone else's comfort felt like withdrawal. Because it was. Same neurochemistry, same withdrawal arc, codependency as the addiction. According to Marcus Aurelius, it is the worst comfort. And I was white-knuckling my way through detox in my home office while my husband sat in his comfortable life, wondering why the servant had gone quiet. As I unwound the roll, things got bad. I was no longer keeping my light behind him, and he could feel it. I was growing, asking questions, demanding answers, and worst of all, demanding access to the finances. He had always lived a life architecturally designed around never having to feel anything. Just do, perform, earn, move on. Never confront the waste, never sit in the discomfort, never examine what's rotten underneath the performance. Some people sit in their diapers their entire lives and simply expect someone to come around with a fresh one. I'd been that someone. I wasn't anymore. As I grew, as the true me began to take up the space she'd always been entitled to, he didn't see a wife becoming whole. He saw competition rising, a similar competition my mother had participated in from my preteens. He could not allow the status quo to change, because the status quo was the only thing standing between him and his own unexamined darkness. I was no longer willing to be someone else's excuse not to look. So